How do you photograph a boring place? What do you do if you live in a boring place? This is an age-old question for beginner photographers and creators everywhere. It seems like no matter where we live, we've all had that feeling that it just doesn't compare to the amazing places that we see online. Well, last week I went home, back to where I started photography, and I had a lot of thoughts about this very topic. Okay, so I guess this video is really about finding a fresh perspective on an old, boring or familiar place. Last week I was at home in Ireland. I live abroad, so I don't actually live there anymore. I live in Germany now, but I try to get home as often as I can just to see family and friends and all that kind of thing. But this is where I was when I started photography or when I bought my first camera. Basically, I'm from a really small village in Ireland. It's quite rural and it doesn't really have a whole lot of people or things going on. Just a very normal, small place. But isn't Ireland beautiful? That's probably what you're asking. Well, yeah, it is. But when I was younger, I didn't really want to see that. Or when I first started out, I didn't really want to hear it. I was more interested in all of the flashy places that I was seeing online, that people were traveling to all over the world. So I often found myself leaning on that excuse that, oh, it's boring where I live. Starting out here, taking photos here when I first started, I didn't really feel like there was a whole lot of room for creativity or a whole lot of room for trying new stuff. Of course, the reality is that I was totally wrong. And now that I'm older, I actually realized that Ireland was, in fact, a pretty beautiful place to live and to start photography. And not just Ireland, my small little village too, that was also beautiful in its own kind of way. And in fact, I was luckier than most people to be able to start taking photographs here. So now it's funny going home, shooting some photos there and thinking about photography in this way and thinking about like how spoiled I was to even think like that. You know, going back with more experience, both photography and life experience, and thinking about it slightly differently. It made me think about this whole boring place trope that we all fall into when we're starting taking photos. A specific place when it comes to taking photographs about it or making something about it or just telling a story about it really just comes down to your perspective. Your own unique perspective of that place, and that's really all you have. You don't have somebody else's perspective of it. You're in your own life. You're only seeing things through your own eyes. And for that reason, that perspective is the most unique thing you have. But that can also make it quite difficult to get out of that specific frame of mind. And that's especially true when we're stuck in like a negative frame or a negative way of looking at it. In this case, when you're looking at your hometown or wherever it is that you're starting to take photos and you're thinking that it's a boring place, you know, that there's nothing new here, nobody would find this interesting. This perspective can be quite difficult to get out of, but really it's nothing more than just a specific view that you yourself look through. It's only unique to you. And the thing is, if you can try to turn that around and try to use that in a positive way and harness that for your photography, that can be a really powerful thing. That uniqueness, that vision can actually be super powerful. You know, that's a classic thing in many forms of art. The ability to be able to break away from the common perspective and see things a little differently. To be able to convey that and package it up in a piece of photography or whatever medium it is, and to be able to give that to people, to be able to share that with people. And yeah, you see it in photography all the time. It's everywhere. For example, right now I'm absolutely in love with that like minimalistic film, almost filmy type style that you see on Instagram quite a lot. Almost like frames from a movie, that type of photography. It's popping up in my feed a lot and I'm absolutely in love with it. But really, when you think about it, a lot of these places in these types of photographs are, I think, what you could also call quite like boring places, quite normal places. There's really not a whole lot going on in the photos. It's just the photographer's perspective of it that makes it quite powerful. This is through either the way they shoot or the tools that they're using or the light that they're harnessing, whatever it is. It's all about capturing that feeling or that emotion that resonates with me when I look at the image. I'm not a massive fan of just telling people to like think outside the box. I think that phrase gets thrown at young photographers a little bit too much, or young creatives or people starting out in any kind of thing. It's a bit cliche at this stage. Oh, I can't find photos where I live, Well, think outside the box. Yeah, great advice. But I guess here there is like a little bit of truth in it. It's maybe more about how I like to think about it. When it comes to this topic specifically, I think the way I try to think about it is more like stepping outside the box and looking at the box itself from the outside, from a different perspective. Maybe the box is actually quite interesting from the outside, you know? And how this plays out when it comes to like finding inspiration in normal places. Well, I like to think about maybe how somebody else would feel looking at this scene that I'm looking at. Almost like seeing things through somebody else's eyes. To me, this is like trying to concentrate on the emotion of it. I know that's quite common in photography, it's talked about a lot, but when you're struggling to find inspiration or you're in a normal place, focusing solely on the feeling, the emotional side of things, that can really help. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or too deep. It's really, I just ask myself, like, how would the viewer feel if they were looking at this specific place? Thinking about how when somebody else looks at my photo, like, how do I want them to feel? How do I want them to respond emotionally to it? I like to take inspiration from movies for this as well. Like, I feel like filmmakers and cinematographers are absolute masters. I don't know how many times I've watched movies of the most boring, simple scenes or ideas, but you know, they just connect with you so powerfully emotionally that you actually feel like you're in it, you feel like it's coming from you. So when I'm not feeling that inspired for my photography or of where I am or my current location or whatever, this is like one frame of mind that really helps me to kickstart it and to snap out of that. Rather than looking at the place itself, rather than looking at all the cool places on the internet or all of the places that you're missing out on or where you are, try to think a little bit harder. Try to think past that. Ask yourself, what are you feeling? What do you want your viewer to feel? How are they going to connect to this specific scene emotionally? Ask yourself, what feeling do you have right now and what feeling do you want somebody else to have? Now I know that all sounds a little bit deep, like if you're in your hometown and you're thinking about how do I want somebody to feel about this, that can sound like a lot, but honestly, give it a shot, because I started doing this a while ago now and it's really like improved my photography a lot. It might take a little bit of work, like it won't come overnight, and it's definitely not to diminish the skill or technical side of photography. Like you're still going to need to do your work, you're still going to need good light, all of that kind of stuff, but it might just help you see things in a way that maybe you haven't seen them before and give you a whole new perspective of your surroundings, to step outside the box, as they say. So clearly this is a bit more of a personal video for me, you know, going back to Ireland, going home, it always gives you a lot to think about. And this time around I thought about when I began to take photos, where I was when I first started. And if you're a young photographer and you're just starting out and you're thinking that your own locality is boring, I think maybe this can help a little bit, because it helped me a lot. Because yeah, as cliche as it sounds, it really is possible to find a photo everywhere. Although, to be honest, you probably won't listen to me and you'll probably have to learn this lesson for yourself. But either way, maybe let me know in the comments. Let me know if this does maybe resonate with anybody, or if any of you have your own thoughts on this topic. It's something that I've thought about a lot, you know. I feel completely different now than I did when I first started taking photos, so it's quite interesting to me. Thanks to everybody that watched. I'll be back with another video really soon. It won't take as long for the next one, I promise. I'm working on some ideas right now and I'm really excited about it. But in the meantime, if you want to learn more about some other mistakes that I made as a beginner photographer, check out this video right here. Or else, check out any of the other videos up on my channel so far. Thanks so much to everybody that's been watching the videos, leaving comments, following along. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll be back again really soon.